Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our meeting. I hope everyone had a good day today. I know we had a great virtual back-to-school assembly, so thank you to everyone who put it together. They did an excellent job. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:06. Today is Wednesday, August the 10th, 2022. Roll call.
Alex Cantu present.
Roberto Zamora present.
Mary Hernandez present.
Espi Ochoa present.
Nereida Cantu present.
Alda Benavides present. Dr. Sines, I do declare a quorum.
Thank you, Dr. Benavides. Good evening, everyone. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I know we have one public comment, Mr. Israel Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez, welcome to the podium.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I'm here before you because, quite frankly, the only way to describe it is I'm heartbroken. Let me explain. I was here on July 27th to explain to you all a little bit of a situation, give you a little bit of background of a situation that I'm facing with the district. This situation continues to evolve. As recently as yesterday, your superintendent of student services, Magda Villarreal, went as far as to tell me, you declined an ARD, sir. I have extensive, and I made it clear to her, I have extensive documentation, and I will furnish phone records to anybody that requests them, including News Channel 5 if they were to ask it. I have every bit of documentation that will show they have been aware since March 9th. Matter of fact, this gentleman, Martin Munoz, the director of student services, the executive director of student services, there he is. How's it going, Mr. Munoz? He actually responded to this grievance and sent it out March 9th, and he carbon copied Magda Villarreal. Now, to tell me that I declined an ARD, that's flat out false, and I challenge that, and I am offering extensive documentation that will show the contrary. Now, that said, another thing that occurred, and this is about ethics. You know, we're worried about this grievance, which has to do with parental and student rights and ethics. You know, where they're saying something that's just totally untrue. Secondary, they declined to take up my grievance. I submitted a grievance on, hey, you have not given me yet what you promised me. So I submitted a grievance on the individuals that I named, and of course, they declined to take them up. It kind of, in my opinion, it's a little bit of a conflict of interest, right? I'm gonna handle my own complaint. Somebody else needs to oversee this. Somebody needs to step in and take over, because the very people that are supposed to be, student services, the very people that are supposed to be advocating for my child's rights. Unfortunately, we all know that despite our best efforts as educators, sometimes children do fall into the cracks, unfortunately. However, in this situation, man, it's scary, it's heartbreaking, because these two individuals are going out of their way to create new cracks to ensure that they can stuff my child in here. I just don't understand why we can't move on this. I am here alarmed as a parent, asking the board to act on this. There is something going on in the district. It has to do with ethics. We need to clean up. We need to hire better people. Again, these are the people that are supposed to be advocating for my boy, and they're doing the opposite. They're supposed to be making sure that we're in compliance with all federal, state, and local regulations. This gentleman and that lady told me that a regulation supersedes a law. Or I'm sorry, that a recommendation is more valuable or holds more weight, somehow holds more weight than federal law. Despite me showing them, sending them links from the Department of Education that specifically and clearly said, no exceptions. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you so much for lending me your ear. I hope that this matter will be resolved sooner than later. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Item number 5, approval of minutes.
Second.
Motion has been made by Ms. Ochoa, second by Ms. Hernandez. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. There are no items under the superintendent's report, so we'll move on to item 7, discussion of the Texas Association of School Boards Policy Update number 119, legal policies and local policies. And I believe we have a little handout at our place setting that we can refer to.
Good afternoon, Dr. Benavides, Madam President, Dr. Science, Madam Superintendent, ladies and gentlemen of the board and community. This afternoon, we will be presenting on TASB Policy Update 119. Now, TASB issues updates to reflect changes in law, rules, and guidelines regarding school district governance and management. These changes come from these and other sources: the Texas Legislature, U.S. Congress, agencies such as the Texas Education Agency or the U.S. Department of Education, rulings from courts, attorney general, or commissioners. Now, this presentation summarizes the most recent changes in state and federal law, court cases and decisions by attorneys general, and the Commissioner of Education, and includes recommended revisions to local policies when changes are warranted. Changes at Update 119 are based almost exclusively on legislation from the 87th regular legislature special sessions and from the regular session that had delayed effective dates. A complete packet has been provided for your review. You will find it in the white binder that was issued to you. So there are 7 sections, each devoted to a separate area of district governance. The A section is for basic district foundations. The B section is for local governance. C is for business and supported services. The D section is for personnel. E section is for instruction. The F section is for student services. And the G section are for community and governmental relations. So in the area of curriculum instruction, there were several revisions and changes done to policy. Under policy AIB, which is accountability or performance reporting, you will now see that the performance of virtual learners will be reported as part of the district's performance report. So when we get our district's report card, there will be a section there that shows how our virtual learners performed. Under policy CQA, technology resources, district campus and classroom websites. Districts are now required to post the curriculum materials that the district uses to teach human sexuality or the prevention of child abuse, family violence, and dating violence, and sex trafficking. So you will now see that in the district website. Under policy DMA, professional development, required staff development, Senate Bill 1267 stipulates that school boards must now annually review the Aspect Training Clearinghouse for professional development, and then annually approve the district's professional development plan, which must be guided by those clearinghouse recommendations. Policy EF, instructional resources. Districts must provide parents login credentials to access our learning management system, right, the Skyward. And on policy EHHA, basic instructional program, required instruction all levels. The SHAC, the School Health Advisory Council, must recommend the appropriate grade levels and curriculum for instruction on child abuse, family violence, dating violence, and sex trafficking. Policy EHDE, alternative methods for earning credit distance learning. This policy or this revision provides districts guidance on how to code virtual learners present for ADA, right? Same requirements as in-person learners. Policy EHDF, it's alternative methods for earning credit, local remote learning option, or the local remote learning program rather. This is a new policy. There are provisions for the implementation of remote learning to address Senate Bill 15. Policy EIF, academic achievement graduation. This revision requires the board to adopt a TEA-provided form that a student may submit to opt out of the financial aid application requirement, the FAFSA requirement, and then requires adoption of a board policy to address the method by which a student can now confirm submission of a financial aid application. Now, policy EKB, testing program state assessments. This policy now requires or allows districts the opportunity to request authorization to administer state assessments on a Monday. And then policy EMB, miscellaneous instructional policies teaching about controversial issues. This policy provides revised provisions on instructional requirements and prohibitions when it comes to teaching controversial issues, meaning issues dealing with public policy or social affairs. So for reference, right, you can refer to those policies and you will get the complete legal and local policy within your binder. Now, to explain the revisions in the area of human resources, we do welcome Ms. Ivana Ayala, Superintendent for Human Resources.
Mr. Munoz, before you leave the podium,
Yes, ma'am.
on the virtual learners, they're going to be listed separately?
I believe so, Dr.
Yeah.
Benavides.
And then on the staff development requirement that we have to approve the staff development plan, that was never the case, right?
No, it was just a recommended list of clearinghouse trainings that some were required, some were recommended. Never brought up for the board for review. Moving forward, we will be bringing this up in upcoming board meetings so that you can review and approve.
Approved, okay. And on the assessments on the Monday, this was the first year that they had changed it, right? That we didn't have assessments on Monday?
That is correct, Dr. Benavides.
So we're going back to...
It's an allowance.
Yeah.
Because of the testing window, availability of resources, technology resources, and bandwidth, they made that adjustment. So in those instances, the districts can petition for permission to start testing on a Monday.
And on the one on child abuse and family violence, daily violence, and the sex trafficking, all we're required is just to list or post the materials that we're going to be using for that?
That is correct, Dr.
Okay.
This is an extension of the authority that's been given to the Hvac, in which they will review it, they will recommend, and they will approve. And then thereafter, those items have to be provided to the committee for their review.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Sines, and our community. In the area of human resources, we have the following updates for 119. It is DC Legal Employment Practices, addition of administrative code rules addressing the monthly certified statement of employment the district must submit to TRS for retirees employed by the district. DFE Legal Termination of Employment, resignations. Provisions on contract abandonment are revised based on amended rules to the State Board of Educator certification. The reasons an educator may abandon a contract for good cause now include the educator's reasonable belief that the educator had written permission from the district to resign. Several new mitigating factors have also been added. Under DG Legal, Employee Rights and Privileges, Senate Bill 3, second call session, brought in a provision from House Bill 3979, regular session, so that a teacher may not be compelled to discuss a widely debated and controversial issue of public policy or social affairs for any course or subject. This provision is no longer specific to social studies courses in the required curriculum. And we have DP Legal, personnel positions. Provisions on school psychological services have been updated based on the revised administrative code rules. Are there any questions under human resources? Thank you. If not, now we have Dr. Magda Villarreal for student services.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and go over the section on student services. We do have FEC Legal, which is under attendance for credit. A district may adopt a policy to exempt students from the requirement of the 90% rule for one or more courses identified in the policy that are offered under local remote learning programs. We also have FFBA Local, and this one is under crisis intervention, the trauma-informed care. The district shall provide training in trauma-informed care in accordance with policy and report to TEA the number of employees who participated in the trauma-informed care training. This past school year, we did report 1,589 employees that were trained. Under FFH Legal, Student Welfare, Freedom from Discrimination, Harassment, and Retaliation, a district shall adopt and implement a dating violence policy. The district needs to make available to students age-appropriate materials on the danger of dating violence and resources for students seeking help. We also have FFH Local under Student Welfare, freedom from discrimination, harassment, and retaliation. This one talks about how the district shall inform and notify parents of any students alleged to have experienced prohibited conduct by a district employee or another adult. Further, the district must include reporting procedures and guidance for students who are victims of dating violence and include a statement that is not tolerated. As far as moving on, we have FOC legal, placement in a DAP setting, Disciplinary Alternative Education Center. This one just talks about how the district may provide DAP services jointly with one or more districts or a third party to ensure that the students receive the services. Also, FOF legal, student discipline for students with disabilities. This one talks about the commissioner having to adopt procedures for the use of restraint and timeout by a district employee or volunteer or even an independent contractor in the case of a student with a disability receiving special education services. We also have GKA legal under community relations, and this one is on conduct on school premises. There is a statutory provision that has been added to clarify the effect of failing to post signs at each entrance to the premises or other property indicating that firearms and other weapons are prohibited. We do have GKG legal, community relations under school volunteer. This one just basically gives the district the right to be able to do a criminal history record information, and we could utilize outside agencies such as the Texas Department of Public Safety and other law enforcement agencies as well, as long as we have it in writing from the parent that they're willing to be volunteers and they want to be volunteers in our district. Are there any questions when it comes to the student services section?
I have some comments. I know then that we should be expecting a policy under for the local remote learning.
Actually, yes, Dr. Benavides, last year we did submit for the exemption of some of the elective courses, so we did that, and for the 90% rule. And this year, because the remote learning, we're doing it under just for K through 5th grade, we will be looking into it to see if it's something that is needed. Okay.
And then on the dating violence policy, do we have that?
We only have a legal, we do not have a local. So I did speak to Dr. Thez on having to work on something for that.
Okay. And then on the comment where it says that the district must include reporting procedures and guidance for students who are victims of dating violence, and include a statement that it is not tolerated. Was that included in our student code of conduct?
It is included, Dr. Benavides. I believe there is a section there. It's not as extensive as it should be, so it's something that we will be working on as well.
Okay. And then on the very last one, the GKG, the legal, that provision does allow us to have volunteers, just so long as they go through the Texas Department of Public Safety, the clearance?
That is correct.
Okay. Those are the only questions I have. I don't know if anyone else has any questions or comments. If not, thank you, Dr. Villarreal.
I'm actually going to do the one for administration and finance as well.
Okay.
So we do have CCGA legal, Adam Valorum taxes, exemption and payments, as provided by Senate Bill 611, regular session, and Senate Joint Resolution 35, and provided by voters in November 2021. The surviving spouse of a member of the U.S. Armed Forces who is fatally injured in the line of duty is entitled to the residence homestead property tax exemption as long as the surviving spouse remains unmarried. We also have the CDC legal, other revenues. A district may not accept private funding for the purpose of developing a curriculum, purchasing or selecting curriculum materials, or providing teacher training or professional development for a course described under Education Code 28.002 H/3, prohibited social studies coursework or extra credit under Education Code 28.002. We do have GKD legal under community relations, no school use of school facilities. This one added extenuating statutory provisions regarding the use of district facilities by place of worship. Are there any questions? If not, next we do have Mr. Ricardo Villarreal.
Does the last one mean like when we let them use which is the athletes, the
FCA?
FCA? Does that include them, or is it just separate churches, or what does that mean?
It doesn't include them. It's my understanding it has to do with having them use our facilities, like for example, churches and stuff like that.
Okay.
Not necessarily FFA.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Yes. I just wanted.
So good evening, Dr. Science, Dr. Benavides, members of the board. Facilities and Operations section, Policy Update 119 that deals with CS Legal and CV Legal on capital improvement projects. And briefly, Facility Standards, which is CS Legal, changes throughout this legally referenced policy on facility standards are now new under the administrative code. There's an extensive amount of updates under this administrative code. And if requested, I can have all the codes emailed and sent over at your request. These rules that were added for capital improvement projects, which means any new building, any new structure that's being made is a capital improvement project on or after November 1st of 2021. And it was revised again under the administrative code rules on the standards applicable to these projects before 2021 of November the 1st. Standards added, I added some of the standards there, but are not limited to being buildings being in compliance with environment, having multi-hazard plan, which LJISD already has incorporated, as well as a minimum requirement of, this is a new one, minimum requirement of 45 square feet for our special needs students for any new buildings. So if it's already built like that prior to, we don't have to, we're okay. Anything new, we have to comply. However, new standards will not require school districts to build bigger schools. School districts will still be able to choose from one of the 4 designs that have already been offered through the state. Any questions on CS Legal? On to CV Legal. Facilities and construction. Changes to this legally referenced policy on facilities constructions are also from the new administrative code. Rules that are extensive in our facilities department and are part of the standards for improvement. Some of the improvements are room sizes and designs as well for the different needs to be all inclusive, as well as safety and security, which we've already began to implement prior to this year for construction on any capital improvement project. Finally, extending a provision has been added to this part of the policy, legal policy, regarding the board's notice of delegation. So who you delegate authority to, which has been our superintendent along with us or designee. This was also added to our legal, CV legal. Any questions on CV legal?
This is not a question, but it's related to facilities. I would like I know you all were doing a study on our portables.
Correct.
I would like for you to bring it to the board so that we can see which portables are still in usable condition, because the more they sit there, they're going to deteriorate and they're not going to be able to be used. And so a comprehensive report on that would be good so that we can make some decisions on all those portables that are available in the district.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'm going to hand this last section over to our Mr. Munoz, legal. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Science, and staff. As you know, my name is Jerry Munoz, and I'm legal counsel for the school district. This evening, we've identified 7 policies that we need to review on the manual update 119. The first one is policy BBB legal, having to do with board member elections. Provisions have been added to this legally referenced policy on elections for a more complete presentation of applicable legal content. Policy BBBA, having to do with elections and conducting elections. Upon the board's receipt of certification that a candidate is unopposed in an election, SB 1 requires the board to cancel the election and declare each unopposed candidate elected to office.
We don't have to worry about that here.
But we'll see. We'll see. Policy BBE, having to do with board members' authority, the provisions on board authority that are addressed at other codes have been removed to eliminate duplication. Policy BBG, board members' compensation and expenses, a revision clarifies that an officer or employee may participate in the comptroller's contract for travel services when traveling for official business. The comptroller can no longer charge fees for these services. Policy BBI, board members, technology resources, and electronic communications, indicates that revisions are to update citations and better reflect legal resources. By legal resources, they mean statutes, AG opinion, commissioner opinions, and/or case law. Policy BDAA, officers and officials, duties and requirements of board officers. Revisions are to better reflect legal sources.
Mr. Munoz, is there another slide? 'Cause
Not
we
that
don't
I'm
have
aware
those that you're-
of, Dr. Sines, I noticed that there's only that one slide.
Oh,
And then leads right into questions.
okay,
But
so on the binder, Board of Trustees, you can look on page 1. And that's where are you starting off, Mr. Munoz?
We're on,
That was the last one. I have one more to go over, Dr. Sines.
I think that the assistant superintendents, when they did the PowerPoint, they only put the policies that had actual changes on them.
Okay.
Is that correct? That's why.
The last one I was going to review is BE, board meetings. This legally referenced policy on board meetings has been revised to reorder and add some existing legal provisions, delete non-essential provisions, and better reflect legal sources. If you have any questions, I'll be around the rest of the meeting, or you can each individually contact me. Yes, Dr. Zamora.
I have a question related to election results in terms of whether we are a district where we get into runoffs if no candidate gets a majority or highest vote getter gets in.
That's correct. Yes, Dr. When we discussed that earlier, we went over the policy having to do with we're a majority vote district since we have places
And the answer is?
by majority vote.
So we have to get a majority, and therefore you do have a runoff if necessary.
I can look into that issue for you, Dr. Zamora, yes. In the event we have more than 2 candidates, is your question?
Yes, where we have more than 2 candidates.
Yes, Dr. Zamora.
The answer is yes?
Yes, am I answering your question?
Yes. Well, let me see if I heard it right. The answer is that yes, we get into a runoff if
That is
the
correct.
candidate does not get a majority.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. If you have any other questions, please feel free to contact me at any time. Thank you, Dr. B.
I think there's a question on,
I
is
was
that a
just-
change?
No.
Did that change? Because I know we've had 3 candidates in other races in the past years, and there's no
Reviewing the
runoff.
policy, that's what we were looking at.
The policy is BBB,
Oh, but there was
and you
some really
can go to
close ones.
page 6 of 6.
I don't have that policy. I don't have the book with me, Dr. Zamora. I apologize.
It reads, the board of a district in which the positions of trustees are designated by number or in which the trustees are elected from single-member districts may provide by resolution, and this is if we want to move, not later than the 180th day before the date of an election, that a candidate must receive a majority of the votes cast for a position or in a trustee district as applicable to be elected. And then the resolution is effective until rescinded. So if we wanted to rescind it, we would have
done
to,
that 180 days before,
right, and we don't have 180 days before.
not before this election.
But the policy states if the district is by districts, we're not by districts.
We are by place,
By place.
right.
So we don't represent a certain district.
right. But what does it say? Read it again.
Talks about a resolution, Dr. B, having a resolution.
Actually, there's a plurality and cumulative. I can let you have mine and you can read it, sir. Let me give it to you. that's here, I'm not the judge. May I approach the bench?
That it does.
The reason that I asked the question is because I've been asked that question, and so it's been on my mind as whether or not and we need to clarify it now that there's time.
So your question's having to do with the resolution, Dr. Zamora?
No, the question is just to whether we are in a board election like what we're having, where we may have more than 2 candidates. Are we subject to a runoff election, or just, and if so, we need to know?
I can look at that policy for you, Dr. Zamora, at this time. I mean, I've got the policy in front of me, but if you give me a chance to read over it, I can definitely provide you an answer.
Sure.
And clarify the issue for the board.
Okay. Yeah, but I think that question has been asked of me, and so I just pass it on to you.
I understand, no problem. I can definitely provide you an answer to that question, Dr. Zamora.
Thank you.
Anything else, Dr. B?
As far as I'm concerned, under that, I think that's it.
All right.
Thank you so much, Mr. Munoz.
Thank you, members of the board.
Are you going to go over other policies that are there? Because I need to ask you a question on one. And we'll need to go then to the, but you don't have them there with you, right? The CCC, policy CCC. This one has to do with purchasing and acquisition. And in purchasing and acquisition, on page 2 of 16, that's policy CH. But it has to do with the bidding of when items are valued at $50,000 or more.
Yes, that was a discussion we had on whether they could do it in parts or not, and I had
and the question is, when we look at the value of the project, is it the total project, or can the project be split up?
My recommendation is that we look at it as a project as a whole, rather than divide it up in sections.
So when projects are being awarded, it ought to be based on the project as a whole and not on the various phases.
Correct.
And so that just, how do we make sure then within the district that that policy is not circumvented by breaking it up into smaller projects?
I'm sure in the past it was circumvented, but I think hopefully now with all the revisions that we made on the policies, not the policies, but the procedures, the administrative procedures that we're going to be following, then
working together with
we're going to have to be real careful for it not to be broken up. And I think that's for support services, Mr. Villarreal, both Mr. Villarreal, Joe and Rick, need to be very, very careful with that it is not broken up and that it is a whole, it's the whole scope of the project, and that it includes the total expense of the project, and for it not to be broken into chunks. But I think it's worked for us and it's worked for them. They need to be sure not to bring it to us broken up.
We just want to make sure that that policy is followed right.
I understand, Dr. Zamora.
Then the other one also within CH, and this is the contract selection factors, as to what factors we may consider for determining who to award the contract to. And I noticed there's
Tell us the page, Dr. Zamora, please.
That's page 6 of 16.
Okay.
6 and 7.
Okay.
We have 9 factors. So as I look through them, it says the purchase price, the reputation of the vendor, and I know that is part of the criteria that we use, the quality of the vendor's goods or services, the extent to which the goods or services meet the district's needs, the vendor's best relationship with the district, the impact on the ability of the district to comply with laws and rules, the total long-term cost to the district, and the other one you see, it's a long paragraph, so I'm not going to read it. But what piqued my interest there was number 5. And number 5 says the vendor's best relationship with the district in terms of what may be considered when we look at best relationships. Because certainly we want to do business with those that we have good relationships.
And a good experience with.
Right. And so sometimes we don't have that experience with some vendors. So the question is, at that point, this one here then says that we do not have to do business with those. Is that correct? Yes. That we do not have to award
That's
contract.
part of your discretion as a board. You get to choose who you wish to do business with as far as past experiences and reputations of your vendors.
So it could be the past experiences with the quality of work or past experiences with any other relationships then.
Or as a in the community as a whole.
But that is
Something
an important
that you
factor.
can certainly take into
Okay.
consideration. Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Samara, I would like to add, good evening. I would like to add that back on May 12th of 2021, we brought the awarding matrices, the evaluation matrices before our school board for approval. And so there was a modification on that specific criterion that you are referring to. And so we issue a very minimal point allocation to vendors that we have done business with in the past. So, for example, I believe we used to have like 2 points, and now, if I'm not mistaken, it's like 1 point. And so that is one criterion amongst all the ones that you mentioned. And so the board's intention was that while we shall give consideration as the statute mandates, we're not penalizing other vendors from doing business with the district, in a sense that if we've done business with a vendor, we're just in the past, and so we give them 1 point, and it's very minimal. So if pricing from a newcomer, if quality, if reputation, delivery, all the other criteria is more favorable, then the district is open to doing business with other vendors. So I just wanted to add that.
True, but there may be some factors where they are serious enough.
Yes.
That given it a value of 1 point or so may not be reasonable for the, in terms of consideration. I mean, there may be some situations where that one factor may be that important.
Could be the determining point, the determining factor. It could be. But again, the state mandates that we give consideration. It says that we shall. So I believe that criterion has 1 point. We can certainly forward the evaluation matrices to the board through Dr. Science if you would like to.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we have good relationships, and those that do not maintain good relationships with the districts understand that we need to have them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think it would be good I think it's a good point, and I think that we should revisit that soon, because if something has happened with that particular vendor, and I know we've discussed this back and forth, but it could be a deciding factor.
Absolutely. And so it's like a double whammy for those that have not performed well with the district, because they're going to lose points in the reputation. We're going to look at the quality of the goods and services being one criterion, and then their reputation is another. So definitely there are various awarding factors that are considered. Now, when we're talking federal funds, that criterion, Dr. Zamora,
the fair price.
Yes. Now, when it comes to federal funds, we have to make sure that pricing is the heaviest weighted. Okay. Now, in our school district, pricing is the heaviest weighted across the board. We have the evaluation matrix for standard funding, for federal funding, for construction, and for professional services. So we have 4 different evaluation matrices that are used, depending on the type of procurement and the funding that supports it.
Say those again.
We have an evaluation matrix that's the standard one, okay? for local state funding that we use. We have the one for federally funded procurement, then we have for construction, and then we have for professional services, because in professional services, if those are the services that are defined as professional services by the state, we're prohibited from requesting pricing up front. So if we were to do that, we would be in violation of the law. So that's why it merits a different type of evaluation matrix.
Yeah, and that's in policy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else, Dr. B? Here.
Thank you, sir.
I think that was it. Thank you, Mr. Munoz. Our next discussion item is discussion of safety and security requirements for the 2022-2023 school year. Welcome, Chief Gonzalez.
Good evening, Madam President, Madam Superintendent, members of the board, administration, community. Again, my name is Raul Gonzalez, your police chief for the school district. As a result of the tragedy in Uvalde on May 24th, the governor's office through TEA is mandating certain things that we do as a school district. And a lot of the mandates that the governor said, we've been doing some of them, or most of them. We made some changes, and I'm going to go over some of the mandates that the governor's office through TEA is requesting and what we're doing as a school district to make sure that, number one, we comply with the mandates, and number two, that we enhance our security and safety protocols for our students, staff, and the community as we do this. So, the mandates that came from the governor's office was, number one, to conduct a summer targeted partial safety audit. And basically with this partial safety audit is just for our administration at the campuses to review all of our security and safety protocols. They're asking specific questions. Do we have access control doors? Do we have police officers on campus? Do we have different programs, even behavioral programs? And they want for us to collect this information so that we can present it to the school safety center once we complete this audit. And this audit is going to be conducted by the principals at the campus level, and they were required to make sure that they submit this information by this week. The second thing that the governor's office is asking us to do is to conduct an exterior door safety audit, okay? And that's for all the facilities. So we've tasked our facilities department to make sure that they comply with that mandate. They finish their audit, and once we collect all the information, we will also submit that information to the Texas School Safety Center. The other thing that the governor mandated was for us to convene the Safety and Security Committee to review our emergency operations plan. And part of that emergency operations plan was the law enforcement response, or the local education agency's active threat plan. And I'll go over that in a little bit. And then another mandate was to ensure that all campus staff are trained on campus safety procedures to include substitutes. And this is specifically to La Jolla ISD safety procedures. The mandate also requires that we do schedule mandatory drills for the school year, and we do that every year, and I'll go over them as well. Mandate requires that our threat assessment team members are trained, and I'll explain that and what we're doing with our threat assessment team members. And then the last mandate from the governor's office was for us to review and update access control procedures for the new school year, and we must include exterior door sweeps and instructional facilities once a week while instruction is being conducted. And this is a requirement that is not only going to be for La Jolla ISD, but the state is also going to come and do unannounced visits to make sure that we are in compliance with this requirement. And Region 1 has also going to participate in this unannounced visit. So the first thing that we did with a summer targeted partial safety audit is that we met with the principals to explain to them what they needed to do. And we reviewed the requirements. There's 47 questions. We told them that the campus administration was going to develop a team and do the audit. and that the audit was due at our office, Student Services, by no later than August 5th. Once we get those audits, we're going to have a debrief with the principals so that we can see what they have and what is it that they need. The audit findings will then be reported to the Texas School Safety Center. The Safety and Security Committee will meet again to review the findings. We've already met in the summer. And then as we're doing these audits, the district will take administrative action to make sure that we fix whatever we need to fix. Please note that while we were doing these audits, anything that needed to be fixed and that we could fix right away has already been fixed or repaired. And we wanted to make sure that the principals knew that we're not going to wait until the beginning of the school year. We understand that some items that are needed to be fixed, some of the components we have to order, some of them are in back order, some of them are not in stock, so we're working with that. The exterior door safety audit, we also met with the principals to talk to them about what that exterior door safety audit was. And basically the governor's office, through a committee, they established some criteria and what are the components that they wanted on the exterior doors. So they gave us that information. We had some trainings with Region 1 so that we could understand what is it that we were looking for. We understand that a lot of people don't understand all the components to a door. So Region 1 gave us a training to our staff. So we reviewed these audit requirements with the principals. The campus administration, the facilities developed a team to conduct the audit. They've already done them. The facilities department then scheduled the walkthroughs. They went out there and walked the campuses with the principals to look at all the exterior doors. That audit, I talked to Mr. Villarreal, and that audit has already been completed. We're also going to meet with the principals to debrief to see what else we need to do. And then the audit findings will be reported to the Texas School Safety Center by September. The Safety and Security Committee will meet again to review these findings. And along the way, as we're finding things that we needed to fix, the district administration has been taking action to fix some of these things. We met with the Safety and Security Committee. We have members of the safety, and there are specific members that the law requires that we have. We have to have our school board president, one school board member, our superintendent of schools, a couple of parents, staff from the district, and at least one of them has to be a teacher, and then members of the police department. So we met and we discussed the mandates that was required by the governor's office, and we discussed the emergency operations plan and the components that the emergency operations plan has, which is mitigation, prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. We talked about the basic plan, and we talked about the appendices and the annexes. In particular, we talked about the district's response to an active threat. And that annex is being reviewed, and as we move forward, we're making adjustments as we learn from the Uvalde tragedy how to come up with better protocols and best practices to respond to an active threat. These are the mandates from the governor's office. So this Safety and Security Committee has to meet at least 3 times a year, one in the summer, one in the fall, and one in the spring. That is a minimum requirement. So we'll meet again to discuss some of the things that we've done. One of the other things that is a mandate is that all staff, to include substitutes, need to be trained on the safety and security protocols that we have in our district. So we developed a training packet. We trained the principals, and we asked all the principals to roll out this training to all of the staff, and they did it today. We went around the campuses and they were doing this training so that everybody that works for La Jolla ISD knows about this. Tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, we teamed up with Region 1 through our Human Resources Department so that we can provide the training to all the substitutes. We understand that some subs are not going to be able to make it to these trainings, so we'll have makeup sessions so that everybody gets a training. And all of our central office staff has also been trained, well, most of them have also been trained on the safety protocols. And the next slides are the safety protocols and procedures that we've trained on. Number 1, that all staff must wear an ID at all times. That staff should park in their identified parking lot, and they should have their parking permits displayed at all times. That all staff should be actively engaged while on duty and during passing periods. We have made a decision as a district that all campuses, their exterior doors will be locked at all times. We've also made a decision that all classroom doors will be locked during instruction and not covered or obstructed with posters or signs. So throughout the day, all classrooms will be locked while instruction is going on. We talked to the staff, and we're training them about the student dress code, that it should be enforced consistently. We did a presentation on the standard response protocols to follow lockdown and lockout procedures. The standard response protocols is a national training. That way, anybody that comes to our district knows our standard response protocols. It's the same in every school district, mainly in the state of Texas, but throughout the nation. And then we've been training the staff on what they need to report. They need to report any suspicious activity to their principal, to the police, to anybody that has the ability to investigate and follow up on suspicious activity. The recommendation from the administration is that all employees that have uniform will wear a uniform at all times. Police, custodians, child nutrition services, the maintenance department, we want for everybody to wear their uniform at all times, 184 days a year. That includes Friday, Spirit Friday. We want for them to wear a uniform. And the reason behind this is because we're training with law enforcement in our communities that everybody is going to be identifiable. So whenever there's a response, we know who's who, and we are able to have best response practices. And then the last thing that we are asking everybody that has a master key, and we learned this from the tragedy in Uvalde, that master keys need to be identified. We want for them to, when we ask for a master key, when law enforcement go into a campus and we ask for a master key, that when they throw us the set of keys, that we know that the one that's red is a master key for the campus. We don't want to be juggling through keys to try to find out which one's the master key. And we're training that with the custodians, the principals, anybody that has a master key. The most important thing that we are telling everybody is that the safety and security of their students, the community, and our staff is a shared responsibility. And we told them that no one is authorized to circumvent any safety and security protocols. And that's a clear message to everybody that works for LJISD. And we're letting them know that if they fail to comply or if they violate any of these protocols, that they could be facing some disciplinary actions. Along our presentation, we're talking to them about our existing safety and security protocols that we already have in place. And the district has been very proactive in making sure that we do certain things. We have camera systems throughout our district. We understand that some of these camera systems may not be working properly, so we are working with the finance department to get some funding to replace them, repair them. We have the Raptor system. Basically, that's a visitor check-in system. We have them at all schools. Anybody that visits our schools has to provide an identification card to make sure that we allow them to go in there. We have the access control doors. If you go to any of the campuses, you have to get buzzed in. And I know that COVID is still something that is going on. And we know that people continue to wear masks. So anybody that comes up to the door, if the campus administration doesn't recognize the person, we're going to ask them to lower their mask so that we can make sure that they're okay and that they can come in. We have the gate system that we worked on. We talked to the staff the importance of the gates and making sure that all the gates are locked at all times and that they're secured. We recently installed a police notification system at the high schools and the middle schools. We are continuing to look for funding to try to get them at all the elementaries and the rest of the campuses. We have the fire alarm system that has been here for years. And then we also have the radio communication system. And we train the principals on the use of the radios, the importance of the use of the radios, and to make sure that they pass it along with their administrative teams, what we're doing. Here, during this summer, we continue to add more security and strategies. We've started the metal detector random searches at the high schools and at special events. For example, the football games, basketball games, and we have other events where we use the metal detectors. We are not ready to roll this out to the middle schools or the elementaries unless it's a special event, but the metal detectors are for high schools. We've recently adopted a new policy. It's called the administrative random search for vehicles for students that bring cars to school. And basically what that is if you want to park in La Jolla ISD parking lot, if you're a student, number one, you have to have a driver's license, you have to have insurance, you have to pay a donation of $10, $5 for Crime Stoppers, and then we give the money back to the kids when on scholarships. And then the most important one is you have to consent to a random search. So what we're doing is this. Let's say the second week of August, we go to Palmview High School and we say every 5th car we're going to search. And we search the car, we search the glove compartment, we search under the seats, we search the trunk, and if we find something that is illegal, then we will follow the student code of conduct and deal with those consequences. And we're doing this as a preventive measure to make sure that kids don't bring things that they're not supposed to in their vehicles. And they have to consent. If they don't want to participate in this, then the alternative is mom or dad have to bring you to school, or you're going to have to ride the school bus. And we're doing this to make sure that we have a safe environment for our students. And then the last thing that we're doing is we're starting the clear bag policy at all of our athletic events and all of our fine art events. If you come to La Jolla ISD, you have to have a clear bag policy, okay? We are looking for ways of how to come up with funding so that next year we can go into a clear bag policy even for students to come to school. And that's the next step that we have for next year. Part of the training that we're giving the campus staff is the importance of the emergency operations plan. We have that EOP. That EOP, we do audits every 3 years. That EOP will be presented again here September of 2023 to make sure that the board knows about the changes that we made. I want to go back to the audit reports real quick. Those audit reports are not releasable to the public, okay? For right now, the state doesn't want for us to release them. The only people that are going to see them is the safety committee and the school board in executive session. Part of the training that we're doing for the staff is to make sure that that everybody sees and knows the standardized response protocols, the hold, the secured, the lockdown, the evacuation, and the shelter in place. And there's a video, it's a 12-minute video. Everybody's watching the video. We're giving everybody an opportunity to ask questions if they have questions, so that everybody knows our standard response protocols. One of the things that the standard response protocols talks about at the end is the run, hide, fight. So through LERT and through the Texas School Safety Center, we were also presenting a video on what to do if there's an active shooter or an active attacker in your campus. And then the last thing that we are doing is the police department is looking at the response. Because of what happened in Uvalde, I think that we know that the community and everybody's looking at how is it that La Jolla ISD PD is preparing. So some of the things that we've done is, number one, we will have police officers at every elementary. We're in the final stages of hiring everybody. We're going to have 26 security officers. We bought a lot of equipment, breaching equipment to open doors, to break locks. We bought a lot of weapons, that high-powered weapons. Our officers are gotten trained on those weapons. And we, throughout the summer, we've done a lot of training, not only within our own police officers, but We partner with other agencies. We have a meeting on Friday with all the local agencies that have overlapping jurisdiction here at LJISD, so that we all can understand what our protocols will be and our responses are going to be if we have an active attacker. And we'll continue to do that. And the training it's an ongoing training. It doesn't stop. We just got some equipment today, tomorrow, and Friday. We're going to train the trainer on 3 of our officers. And then on Saturday and Sunday, all of our police officers are going to come in for a 4-hour training so that they can also know how to use those shields. So we continuously work on training to make sure that we plan to be ready for an active attack response. And then the last thing I want to mention is that we continue to look for funding. On the drills, we are mandating that we have a lockout and lockdown drills at the high schools, middle schools, and elementaries. So we already told the principals to start working on them. Obviously, fire drills per semester are going to be required, and all these drills are part of our emergency operation plan. We are mandated to have a threat assessment team, okay, at as a district. And we as a district decided that because we are a big school district, that every campus is going to have a threat assessment team, formerly known as the Campus Crisis Team. Some of you may have heard that when you were back at our schools teaching, right? And members of the threat assessment team are the principal, the assistant principal, a counselor, the nurse, the coach, the head custodian, CNS manager, and a law enforcement. The other person that we're looking into also being part of the threat assessment team is the librarian, okay? And we talked to the principals about that if we can add the librarian to be part of the threat assessment team. And basically these team members every week are going to have to meet to review any possible threats and to review any recommendations to enhance the overall security at the campuses. I talked a little bit about the exterior door sweeps. That's going to happen. We're going to do them once a week. The governor's office, even yesterday, he made it clear to all school districts that the governor's office is going to be sending people to act as intruders to see how far they can go into the schools. So we talked to the principals, we talked to our law enforcement that it's important that we secure our schools at all times because we don't know what the sanctions are going to be, and but we want to make sure that we comply with this audits and reports. So again, there's a lot of things that we've been doing over the summer. A lot of these things we've been doing for years as a school district, but because of the tragedy, now it's making sure that everybody does it. We as a district participated in a committee to assist Region 1 in coming up with a safety and security conference. Dr. Sines, myself, and one of my captains, and we send personnel for that conference as well. So any opportunity that we have to get trained and look at best practices, we're doing that so that we can come back and implement them in our school district. Questions or comments?
Chief, I know that with band practice and cheerleading practice and other clubs that come before very early hours, what are the safety protocols then? I know we're talking during the school hours, but what safety protocols do we have in place before school starts and even after?
Yeah, so that there's a lot of soft targets in our school district, right? School buses. So some of the things that we're doing as a police department is we changed our assignments. So now we're having police officers come earlier at the high schools. Police officer, every high school has 9 uniformed personnel, security officers and police officers. So a police officer at a high school is going to come in at 11 o'clock in the morning, and then he's going to stay until he finishes his 8 hours, and he's going to be the one patrolling the school to make sure that we cover those areas that we don't.
But like what is happening now? Like right now that we're having cheerleading practice beforehand, band practice,
right now
football practice?
We have patrol officers on patrol.
But before school?
We have patrol officers patrolling the whole school district. So every shift has about 4 or 5 officers, and their assignments is to go to the schools where there's already kids on campuses to make sure that we patrol those areas as best as we can. I mean, When we talk about the operations of a school district, I mean, they literally start at 5 o'clock in the morning, and coaches are getting here at 5 o'clock. I talked to the CNS ladies and men here 2 days ago in a presentation. They show up at 6, and that's why we're trying our best to change our services so that we can have personnel ready, in particular personnel that are trained to respond to an active situation. And our partnerships with our law enforcement agencies are very important as well. I think here before we went into the summer, we brought an item before you so that we could amend our memorandum of understanding so that we can ask the local, county, and state police to send an officer when feasible to our schools, and they're doing that. A lot of our principals were surprised that state troopers are showing up to the campuses, and the state troopers have been required by the governor that they go and visit the campuses and identify themselves and then walk the campuses and get a copy of the emergency operations plan so that they can at least have an idea of the layout of the campus. So we're working with all of our partners to make sure that we cover a lot of the things that are still vulnerable in our district. Any other questions or comments?
Chief, I just want to thank you and your department. I know safety, and I know I speak for all of us here, that safety is at the top of our priority, especially after unfortunate events that have recently occurred. I have two questions. You mentioned the including substitutes would get trained, and as far as like when there's a lockdown, who is training these substitutes? Or
I am.
Okay.
I'm going to do it tomorrow.
Any substitute that works for the district, it will be trained.
They have to. Okay, the mandate says that, and we talked to Region 1, right? Because the standard response protocols is the same everywhere in the state, in the nation. But the mandate says that substitutes have to be trained on La Jolla ISD specific safety and security protocols. So we've been working with Ms. Ayala, and I know that some subs have already said that they can make it, so we're going to have a makeup session. We're not going to deny them to come and work because we need subs, right? But as soon as they're available, we're going to provide that training for them.
Okay, good. Yeah, and I was asking because I know that there are days where we have a lot of substitutes.
Yes. So we have, tomorrow we have 3 sessions, and then on Friday we have another 3 sessions, and then we're going to talk about makeup sessions as well.
Okay. And on the clear bag policy, just so we're clear, for the schools and the students, it is just recommended.
Right.
As of now.
It is recommended.
And for the games you had mentioned, that's already going to be in place?
That's going to be in place, and that's going to be in place valley-wide. I know Coach Garza's here. That is going to be implemented valley-wide. So if you go to a game in one of the other school districts and you don't have a clear bag, they're not going to let you
I know some districts were already doing that last year when we would go to the games.
Yes. So we are also doing the same thing. Not every school district is doing it for the students and the staff, but for events that are not part of the regular, it is required throughout the whole valley.
Thank you.
Chief, I just wanted to make a comment. I know that it's difficult with a district as big as ours, 226 square miles. It's difficult to cover a lot of ground, and I just want to commend you all for, it's unfortunate that it's come to this, but it's better to be, safe, and I know that your staff has been working all summer, and for that, I commend you all, and I thank you for everything that you all do.
Thank you, Mr. Cantu. Thank you.
The same thing here. I think it's been said, but it's worth saying again. Commendations to your department. I know you've had a busy summer trying to make sure that our children and our staff are safe. And Mrs. Cantu said it well. It is the priority for all of us. So thank you very, very much to you and to all your officers, all your department for all the work that has been done. And a special welcome to those 22 officers that are going to be joining us in our elementary schools. We're very, very glad that you're going to be with us, and I know that you're going to help us keep all our elementary students safe. And then, of course, those that are returning that were already with us in the middle school and high schools, thank you for the work that you've done in the past, and may you continue to make safety the #1 priority for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Yes, thank you.
We're going to move to consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be pulled out of consent agenda? If there are no items to be pulled out, let's entertain a motion for consent agenda.
Second.
A motion has been made by Ms. Ochoa, second by Ms. Cantu. Dr. Cantu, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Under contracts, number 4, approval of memorandum of understanding with the United Migrant Opportunity Services Incorporation Migrant Seasonal Head Start Program.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion on item 4, 5, and
Thank you. Mr. Cantu has made a motion for items 4, 5, and 6. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Ms. Hernandez. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Under Business and Finance, number 4. Did I miss something?
Yes.
Where?
It's number 9.
Oh, okay, yes, you are correct, and I circled it. Under bids, number 9, approval of employee voluntary insurance benefit plans, CSP 2022-03 renewal. I'd like to move that we postpone this item and for it to be rebid to see if we can get better prices for our employees.
Second.
Motion has been made, second by Ms. Ochoa. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. On Business and Finance, number 4, approval of appointment of 2022 official delegate to the Texas Association of School Boards. Do we have to vote?
On this item, we do need to select one of our Board of Trustees to be a delegate assembly member.
Is this for the?
Is this for the San Antonio TASB convention, which is on September the 24th in San Antonio?
Who's attending?
I'd like to make a recommendation on if the board's okay with Dr. Nereida Cantu.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made for Dr. Cantu to serve as our official delegate, and a second has been made by Ms. Ochoa. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 5, approval of certification of 2022 appraisal roll totals. Motion has been made to approve by Ms. Ochoa. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Cantu.
I just have a question. Discussion. Go ahead. Go first.
I don't have a question.
Do you have a question, Dr. Zamora?
Yes, I just want to know, that's the question, is how do the numbers compare to the prelim numbers that we use for budget purposes to develop our budget?
We have Mr. Jaime Lopez, and so Executive Director, so he will provide us that information.
Are these pretty close, or where are we?
Can you repeat the question, Dr. Zamora?
Yes, sir. I'm just wanting to ask the question is how do these numbers now compare with the preliminary estimates that we built our budget based on?
Yes, when we brought you the numbers back in May, we were at like a 4.8% growth, and these look at 5%. So the MCR that we assumed back then is the same MCR that we're going to have now. So pretty much the tax rate is set, but we have to come back in September and actually adopt it. And we have to bake in the disaster pennies.
So for budget purposes, we're okay?
Yes.
And the tax rate?
Yes,
okay.
We're pretty much set. We just have to make it official in September.
Thank you.
Okay.
Motion has been made and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Lopez. On item number 6, approval of final application and certificate for payment for contractors' fees for renovations to Palmview High School cooling towers replacement project. Motion has been made by Ms. Ochoa. Do I have a second? Do I have a second? If we could have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Cantu, and then we have a question.
Just to make sure I'm on the right one. We're on
222.
222. Now, my question is, in the rationale, the statement is that we believe that it is substantially completed, and then we're asking for the payment to be made as if it is. So I want to know which one is it. Is the project complete or not?
Good evening, Dr. Zamora. To answer your question, yes, the project is It was substantially complete a few months ago, so now they're asking for the final payment.
So it is complete?
It is final, yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Motion has been made by Ms. Ochoa, second by Dr. Cantu. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 7, approval of standard form of agreement between owner and contractor for the La Jolla ISD ESSER funds, Chavez and Memorial Middle School's HVAC upgrades. That one is found on page 226.
So moved to approve.
Motion has been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Cantu. Motioned by Ms. Ochoa. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 8, approval of application for payment of engineering fees. Number 1, to oversee the La Jolla ISD ESSER funds project for Chavez and Memorial Middle Schools HVAC upgrades. Found on page 228. Do I have a motion?
I just have a question.
If we can do a motion in a second, and then we'll have discussion. Okay, motion to approve and discuss by Ms. Ochoa. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Ms. Hernandez. Okay, now the questions.
Just real quick, Mr. Real, is this engineer any of the ones that was doing the canopies?
No, sir. This is MEP Solutions. This is for HVAC projects.
That's all I needed to know.
And thank you for including the name and address, because we've been asking for that, so we appreciate that. Motion has been made in a second. All those in favor to approve number 8?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Number 9, discussion, and possible action on authority to negotiate contract with contractor offering best value to the district based on the published criteria and evaluation of competitive field proposals for La Jolla ISD ESSER funds canopy structures phase 1 project M2 engineering. Found on page 233. That's the one we agreed to go ahead and proceed last board meeting. Do we have a motion?
Who are we recommending?
Well, it's because two of the bids.
Works is the one that's here.
Mr. Villarreal.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Who are we recommending, or can you tell us a little bit about this one?
So for this item, we're recommending Reno Works, Facility Solutions. That was the bidder that was approved by the board at the last board meeting.
Okay.
Do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Cantu.
What are we negotiating? Or
Do we
is that
have-
asking permission to
To
negotiate?
negotiate the best and final
I
price.
believe they added
Yeah.
that middle school on the email paperwork on page 235.
Yeah, but we're already awarding it. We've awarded it, so now we come back and negotiate.
Yes, so the vendor was approved. So the process is usually we do the highest ranked bidder and permission to negotiate, and then we negotiate the best and final. In this case, since the board approved the vendor last board meeting, we're not doing the ranking, but we do need permission to negotiate. It's just a process that we go through.
It's just that I saw a previous one that said, after negotiation, no change, and no change, so hopefully this one is a
Yeah,
different
well,
result.
given how the economy is right now, it's very hard to, get people to come down on the pricing, unless we change something on the design, of course.
Right.
Motion has been made by Mr. Cantu. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Ochoa. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 10, approval of order of general election for La Jolla ISD School Board to be held on November the 8th, 2022. This is for the general election for the positions for Dr. Cantu, Ms. Ochoa, and Mrs. Hernandez. Do I have a motion to approve? This is on page
moved.
237, place 1, 2, and 3. Motion has been made by Mr. Cantu. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Hernandez.
And for the record, would you read the amendments that were made regarding precincts and time?
On the early voting, there's a change from the page 238 that is in your binder. And there's an additional document that you were given, and the change is that on the early voting dates and hours on Sunday, October 30th, 2022, it is from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and not 3 p.m. as was stated in the original document. And then also, the following precinct should not have been on the list, and that was precinct 256. It has been taken out from the updated document that you have.
Which is precinct 256? Which one is it? 256, where is that?
North.
Mission?
North Palm.
Okay. So that's why it shouldn't have been in ours. Okay. We had the motion and we had the second. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 11 is approval of order of special election for La Jolla ISD School Board to be, school board election to be held on November the 8th, 2022. This is for place 5 and place 6. Motion has been made by Ms. Ochoa. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Hernandez. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
The same changes apply here.
That's
for the
correct.
timing.
The only clarification that needed to be made here is that anyone that has signed up, was that correct, Dr. Zamora?
Yeah,
Anyone
if we
that
can
has,
ask,
Jerry, can
Munoz
you make
to
that
clarify
clarification?
for us, sir?
Policy indicates that now that you call the election, individuals who should be on the special election file their application tomorrow.
So anyone who previously filed it for 5 or 6 needs to come in and refile.
Refile, correct.
Yes, okay. Just wanted to clarify that openly.
Because we couldn't do it until after.
Under Human Resources, number 4, approval of extra duty pay for tutorial services stipend.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Mr. Cantu, second by Ms. Hernandez. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. We will be exiting into executive session at 7:28 under Government Code 551074, 551071, and 551072. We're back from executive session at 8:12.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve items 1 through 6 as discussed in executive session.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made by Mr. Cantu, second by Ms. Hernandez. All those in favor to approve items 1 through 6 as discussed in executive session, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Cantu, second by Ms. Hernandez to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned at 8:13. Everyone have a good evening.